Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 3 Part 2 just came out, and it was, in a word, excellent. I could talk all day about how utterly amazing Dragons Rising is and how I can't wait to see more, but this is not the subject of this video. That was actually the subject of another video I made a long time ago. Today we're diving into the mystery of Lord Ross's master. If you're not caught up, basically the villain of Dragons Rising, Lord Ross, has some mysterious master who he follows and is able to communicate with and works for. Contrary to my clickbaity thumbnail, it has actually not been confirmed who it is, but like WattPad, we're gonna solve it. Hope that was good enough. First, let's take a look at what we know about Ross's master. We know that Ross is pretty old, probably middle-aged, and this character met him when he was very young, so Ross probably met his master decades before the events of Ninjago start. This character taught Ross to utilize and prioritize strength above all other values. After the ritual of the Blood Moon failed, Ross's master was able to teleport him and the entire wolf clan out to a field. Ross then promises not to disappoint them again. This character is depicted by a yellow light with this sound, which pulls Ross into like a strange red-orangish dimension. An interesting thing of note is that we see souls as yellow orbs, including the soul of Sensei Wu. So this yellow light could mean it's someone who's dead and that this is their spirit. Spirits can still have some types of power, as seen with Moro and Wu's spirit affecting their elements at the end of Dragons Rising Season 3 Part 2, so that's how a spirit would be able to teleport the entire wolf clan. Ross is from the wildness, so because he met his master before the merge, his master has to be able to go to the wildness. So who are some likely candidates? While it definitely could be a new character, which I'll talk about more toward the end of this video, I doubt that's the case. Usually when someone's identity is hidden, that's done deliberately. Rarely is it ever done unintentionally without significant reason or reveal. Since it's likely a familiar face, though, let's go through and look at each of Ninjago's villains. Garmadon, since March of the Oni crystallized in the Garmadon comics, has been good. Also, he was likely banished to the underworld at the time when Ross's master was said to have met Ross. Samakai is long departed and didn't do enough to warrant such a grand return. Harumi is way too young to have met Ross when his master did and never went to the wildness, also she's good now. Nauticon has no interest in these affairs. Kalmar's too young to have met Ross and likely has no interest or even patience. Moro is good now. Chen is too wacky and not serious enough, nor powerful enough. Klaus is an interesting possibility. Again, Klaus being in the wildness is kind of weird, but he knows all sorts of strange magic, which would explain all of this, like him teleporting the wolf clan around. However, I just don't think it's very likely. While Klaus was portrayed as like a big shot villain in various Ninjago media, the show did him really dirty. He was just kind of a side villain and nothing more. He's died a few times, so a return is possible, and honestly, I'd be quite down for that. But unfortunately, it's likely not on the table. Pythor was locked away in a tomb when Ross met his master, same with Asphira. The mechanic is not powerful enough for this. Fenwick would be cool, but doesn't have that kind of power. Like in Splinter and the Blind Man's Eye, he needed Lloyd to go fetch more scrolls for him to write things to happen. Ronan is too passive and nonchalant. Vangelis isn't powerful enough to do this, and there's no real reason why he would. Omega is an interesting idea. We do know that the Oni came to Ninjago looking for the first Spinjitzu master, meaning that they can travel between realms. In fact, in the canon, the Oni took over the Cloud Kingdom during the events of Season 10. So this explanation could work as to how the Oni, or how Omega rather, would have gone to the wildness. The destructive things Ross's master makes him do fall in line with that of the Oni. Oni can shapeshift, and after the merge, shit got really weird. Lloyd is sometimes pulled into whatever strange space the Source Dragons occupy or communicate through, so Ross's master pulling him into that weird space could be something that, on the other side of dragons, Oni are also capable of. We can barely tell what Omega's saying most of the time, same with Ross's master. Quite a bit of attributes lining up. Next, I present not only my favorite theory, but probably the most strong one, the Time Twins. They were popular villains who came from an unpopular season. Their status is unknown. Last we saw, Wu broke the Iron Doom, hopped out 1 year after the present, and had reversed into a baby. We were left to assume that Crux and Acronix would just float through time forever? Because they weren't seen dying, it makes that possibility very open. The biggest piece of evidence for me, though, is this sound when Ross's master communicates with them. This sounds very similar to the sound that the Iron Doom makes when the Time Twins use it. I mean, the twins were villains who seemed like they would teach Ross these things about power being all that matters. It is what they believed. We do know that they can travel around in time, so maybe Ross was like the strongest warrior in the wildness, so they went back in time and corrupted him. Ross does say in Season 3 Part 2,
"The time of your glory will soon be at hand."
Like, the way that he emphasized time stuck out to me, but maybe I'm just schizo. I don't know, I'm pretty confident that that means something. We do know that Crux was very patient about setting up his plans, like with the Vermilion Warriors, so him training Ross through all this time would make sense. Which, by the way, Vermilion is a red to orange shade. It's a reddish orange, just like the color of the space that Ross's master pulls him into. There are only a few problems with this theory, like how or why the Time Twins would go to the wildness, or why their power would be seemingly so limited that they need Ross to go and do their bidding. I have headcanons and explanations, but it would just be reaching at this point. This would be my favorite outcome though, if Ross's master was the twin speaking through the Iron Doom, because I actually loved Crux and Acronix, especially the latter, and I'd love to see their characters done justice, unlike what Hands of Time did with them. There's great voice talent behind those characters, and them being involved would mean that Season 7 had drastic consequences. Maybe they float through time, and then when the merge happens, they get stuck in time-space, so all they can do is travel through the space, and from there, they get Ross to try and reverse the merge so that they can move around normally. That I might be down for. Unfortunately, the most likely outcome is the Overlord. I really don't want it to be, but honestly, this is probably what it is. We've seen the Overlord portrayed as an orb that summons people around before, like with Harumi in some weird purple dimension, another space between realms. It is immortal, so we know it's alive, and it's evil enough to do all of this stuff with Ross. However, the thing is that the Overlord is mostly connected to Ninjago. We've never really seen it realm hop before, other than from the Departed realm-ish. After being banished to the Dark Island when Ninjago was cut in two, we have no reason to assume that it left to the wildness. It probably didn't venture off there to find Ross. Then again, it's a being that can do all sorts of weird, strange things, like creating the Great Devourer, or like kind of programming it, so to speak. He can do anything that's convenient to the plot, so who knows. Though I feel like people are kind of over the Overlord at this point. He's basically an orb of evil with no personality that isn't interesting, and served as the main villain of like 3 seasons. He's fairly unpopular and most people don't want to see him return. I mean, I certainly don't. Also, since when did he ever teach anything that wasn't just be evil? Like, I feel like if Ross truly follows this character, there has to be more principles than that. We know that his master teaches strength and how that's the most important thing, but I don't remember the Overlord ever teaching anyone anything. Also, this figure was likely Ross's master for years. The Overlord was practically dead between seasons 3 and 15, so that throws a wrench into things, luckily. Now, as for the possibilities of someone unfamiliar, like a new character, one person on Reddit said that their dad came up with the theory that Ross was able to time travel around to find his younger self so that he could teach himself to be stronger than he was. I mean, probably not the case, but interesting theory. Some have suggested the possibility of Source Oni, or like a Firstborn-esque Oni equivalent. Though I get the feeling that if Source Oni exists, they would be doing so much more during the events of Dragon's Rising, more than just commanding around Ross. He would be like a conduit of their destructive powers, most likely, instead of needing Source Dragon icons. Who do you guys think Ross's master is? Leave some comments down below. Be sure to subscribe. Sorry for the lack of content lately. I'm working on that big, like, timeline video that I mentioned last time. There are so many things to read and rewatch and all that. It's been a tall task putting it together. I'm also working like 10 days in a row this week at my job, so yeah. It sucks. I'll try to put out stuff soon, but yeah, in the meantime, I will see you guys later. I gotta stretch out this video past 8 minutes to qualify for more ads and money. Give me money. I want money. Money, money, money. I'm like Mr. Krabs. Alright, bye.